right. Well, peace and shalom to everybody. Namaste to you. I hope that you truly are experiencing goodness in the midst of all of this craziness. Uh, quite, quite amazing the transitions that are happening everywhere. We have so many things that are so beautiful and bright and that are manifesting and coming forth. And boy, it seems that at the same level, there's all of this other stuff. And if it's not wars, it's struggles with people, and it's part of it. It may be hard sometimes for us to understand. Many of you may or may not. So if you do already, then I apologize for being redundant. But most of the deeper things that are coming forth from the spirit realm are being given to humanity to help them understand the transition that we're in. We're in a lot bigger transition than most people have a clue of. The earth is in the works, the forward throes of purging itself, and so I know that it doesn't make a lot of people feel comfortable, but the reality is that there are many things, as I've been saying for a while, that we're going to watch manifest, and we're going to, if you focus only on that as it is. So here's the statement I kind of left y'all with last week. Okay, just remember one thing: whatever it is that you focus on, that's what your life is. And so I watch people all the time, and you listen to their words, and you watch their behaviors, and they're focusing on all of whatever it is they're focusing on, and then they don't understand why their life turns out like it does. It's no different for any human being. Every one of us are all going through the same experiences. We are all the collective conscious expressing and experiencing life through the individual strand called you. Think about that for a minute. It really is quite profound. If you haven't heard these, you're going to hear things maybe that some of you aren't all that familiar with, and yet they're very familiar beliefs, pictures, realities. But all of us are the same energy. Every one of us. We are all the same conscious. And you say, well, how can that work out? Well, because we all emanate from consciousness. We're all the same outside of this human realm. All of us are exactly the same. We're all part of Source, Monad. Everything that came from Source came through the monad. There is a portal that opens, and things are released in this side. And when the monad is opened, that is also when people enter back in to the pure light. It's not like anything you've ever heard. It's not like anything you've ever seen, probably. But it is the reality of how everything that exists came to exist. You might have been confused. There's several things I'm just going to kind of try to touch on tonight that seem to keep the spirit keeps bringing these things up, it asking, I guess, if you would, questions, and and so we all are here on an experience. Your experience, the purpose of it is really not so much for you, because you're consciousness. Okay, the true you is consciousness. You're not a human. You never were a human, and you never will be a human. You are consciousness residing at HUMAN. It's like a street address. All down this street, there are houses. They're not all the same houses, but they all reside in the realm of Georgia Street. And that's exactly what humans are. And I know that I've talked to some of you, And some of these things are really quite perplexing because they're so outside of what most people, not that they couldn't deal with it, but what most people will allow themselves. So once again, in the creation of humanity, you are creating what you are experiencing. And it's a phenomena that certainly is very relative for the time in which we live. It's relative, but it is also relevant. And so we have a situation that we have to then place that we I guess want to say need to. You don't necessarily have to. Another thing that keeps popping up, so I wanted to remember this with you, or at least remind you of it. I said the other day that everyone has a choice to make, and everyone inevitably, eventually, at least I guess at most part, I haven't been there in my consciousness, so I don't know yet. But all of us have an opportunity to awaken. All humans, so I understand, eventually will awaken. Okay? The caveat to that statement, which is why so many people use what we call cliches of spiritualism, and I'm finding very often that for them it is nothing more than a cliche. You learned how to say the words, or you learned how to speak the supposedly spiritual thing out, and because you do that, you convince yourself that you're spiritual. And it's one of the greatest lies you can ever teach yourself. Because the reality of the fact is that all of us are spiritual, whether we do anything or don't. The concept is not that we need to do something to become spiritual. The concept is that you must begin to accept the responsibility for your consciousness. And that's a totally different animal. People, I said it because I knew in my spirit that it was going to be the case. People, I've heard all kinds of things about, oh, it's so easy, and it is easy. There, a lot of crap that we live our lives tied up in, we really should be smarter than that, and we should never engage in it in the first place. So that's the first thing. This is the most difficult, easy thing you'll ever do in your life. And some have found that out and they acknowledged it. Others still haven't found it out. They still haven't figured out what's going on and what this pattern is about. But the reality for all of us is that we are this energy that is cloaked, if you want to. And that actually works almost better than being covered with mud, because mud indicates that you're somehow, according to humans, you're dirty. And it's not that concept. You're just so covered over with clutter that you can't see. And many people will stay that way, dear friends. Many people are going to stay that way. I keep reminding myself, and I go back and I watch the ancient masters and I read the ancient text, and it's so crazy to me because about half of the sect that exists in America right now is trying to tell people that everything that has been reality 10,000 years before there was a Christianity is not true. And so that works. That's why I say to you, whatever you believe is your reality anyway, so you've already created your reality. Just be aware that you created this thing that you call reality. If you like what it is, wonderful, you did a good job. If you don't like what it is and your life sucks, wonderful, you did a good job, because that's obviously what you were looking for. And that's strange to us because we look at ourselves and we say, oh, well, I couldn't have wanted parents like that. But that's nothing but you trying to define something that you don't even have knowledge of. You don't have any clue. It may be the only truth that you chose and wrote contracts down in the spirit realm before you ever became a human the first time. And you did, in fact, pick this. And so I have to tell you, we are in the situation in the middle of a very, very, very massive, and I know there are a lot of people saying this, some in different ways that are trying to pull Christianity back into the mix. And if you don't know and you buy that stuff, I'm sad for you, but you know, you're going to get the same thing you got before. It isn't going to change. But the reality is that we are in the midst of a huge turmoil, tumultuous time. We have prophet after prophet after prophet over the last 10,000 years who have spoken of this time, who have spoken of the things, and they all, there's many teachings you can find that have no problems in spending 45 minutes of your time showing you how all of these major prophecies are saying exactly the same thing, friend. And people don't want to hear it. They, you know, they act like somehow they're spiritually above the reality that they exist in. And so there are many things going on. Part of what it makes this so great for the spiritual realm is you get the opportunity to see a time when the spirit realm is becoming amplified, and the veil, if you want to call it that, between us and it is getting very thin. I'm hearing stories now of people who are leaving their physical body at will again, as they did before there was Christianity. They are finding people sitting in a lotus position at the foot of their bed, and there is no one in the body, but the body still exists. Friends, if you really thought you wanted to find out what Yeshua and this stuff, you turn off to it, don't worry. You won't have to worry. You'll never see that realm. On the other side, if there is something inside of you, like a beacon glowing, that says it is so, then wow, get ready, because your experiences are going to be monumental, to say the least. And so, if this is a system that has to be learned, and it is, that's one of the greatest problems. In the teachings I heard early on, I would hear this, you know, and it's gibberish on many levels. It's almost as if, well, it is very much akin to the flavor of you needed somebody's blood to drip so that you could be saved. Okay, it's happening. A version, a form of that is what's functioning in spiritualism. And so you have a whole bunch of people who can use clichéic terms, but they have no understanding at all. There's a reason why when Solomon said, which is infinitely greater than anybody has a clue, Solomon was a power force on the level of Yeshua. Some believe that Yeshua's spirit inhabited that in an incarnation, and it's very possible. He didn't just have wisdom for no reason. There was a reason why he was the wise leader that he was. But these situations keep occurring where you get tumult, and then at the same time you have a spiritual revolution going on. And I can only perceive that Source does those things simultaneously. That is to say, the things on this earth that you're watching ramp up are very much tied to the fact that there are things over here. I'll give you a little statement, and it's a silly little statement, and most people really, I'm sure from what I've heard anyways, really don't want to hear it. But it's one of the only pieces of truth that I have to give you. Okay, and that truth is that the seed is never breaks open and comes forth unless there is pressure on it. You could, if you spend any time studying outside of some spiritualist and you begin to go see some things that are reality, you will very much see that it has been known for a long time When you begin to ascend, things begin to get hard. I don't say that there is some math that you can put to that. I don't say that will inevitably always be everyone's experience, but the people that have validity, at least in my reality, those people all have lived through this and come out of it with one of the core things that you will never possess, never, unless the pressure is put on you, and that is a relationship with yourself. We are living in a time when it's wonderful to find out that you're an avatar. I've had people get mad at me about that. I've had people argue about that. And to be honest with you, I'm sorrowful you're mad, and I don't have any desire whatsoever to argue with anyone about anything. You are free to believe whatever it is that you want to believe. It's so funny when you get out of the lies how huge the reality really is. Yeshua kind of played this. It's been watched. It's in Zen Buddhism. In Zen Buddhism, they do everything they can do to get you not to follow them. Exactly the opposite of what most Western humans think is good. And they tell you the hard truth that most people don't want to hear, because those that don't want to hear, they don't want to waste their time on. And so when conflict and, oh, well, I don't resonate, most of those masters are very thankful when someone says that. Exactly the opposite of all the programming that we have ever had. If someone is not going to move out of the physical realm and into the spirit realm with you, then why would you want them draining and sucking your energy? Because that's what that is. They are used by the archons more than you can imagine. People that sleep next to you, people that you know, in their minds, they believe they're some spiritual guru, and yet in reality, they are a vehicle of the archonic impulses that humanity has to deal with. And so this is kind of becoming manifest all of the sudden. And so we are this thing called sovereign. And if you're not familiar with what a sovereign is, then you at least Google it on your phone if you have a desire. But the reality of it is that there is in no way anyone who is over me. No way anyone. Wow. That's an amazing statement. Everybody thinks, just like there's no more Torah, everybody thinks, oh, wonderful, now I'm free to do whatever I want, and you are. But please hear tonight, dear ones, you are free to do whatever you want. But understand, you still have to pay prices for everything that you want. So I'm watching these people that are wandering around in la-la land trying to convince themselves through spiritual pride that they somehow are awakening. And it's quite a rough road, because how will they ever see? And so I know that that's not everyone by any stretch, and I know that may not even be the larger majority, but it does exist. And so I begin to ask questions like, what is, if this is something that Source desires and has always desired humanity to come to, then what is it that motivates? What is it that kicks it off? You've been told that, there's karma, and there is, not necessarily maybe the way whoever explained it to you explained it, but it is nonetheless, it is existent. But what it is and what it isn't is at many levels is kind of unknown, actually. In the same way with spiritual powers, in the same way with, psychic abilities, and so there's a lot that's really available to us, but we have such horrible programming about those things. Many of you, may still not want to watch a medium, or to you, because it's so ingrained in you that that's bad, and that's really should speak to us about the power of the programming that we've all been put through. And so part of the remembering is remembering that that's not me. Okay? There's a question that we could all ask ourselves: what does it take? Okay? Because nobody has the answers, and if they tell you you do, you certainly need to run. Okay? But nobody has the answers fully. At most they can possess, and most don't, even of that, is the journey and experiences that they have encountered. You don't know about what a near-death experience is, no matter how much you think you do or how smart you think you are. You don't understand anything until you've lived one of those. And one of the biggest things that we do in this thing is we actually exalt ourselves through ego by thinking that somehow we're smarter than everyone else in the world, so we're the ones that can figure it out without actually doing it. And it doesn't work. It's never worked. If it was, don't you think that the hospitals would be empty with people who want to do what Yeshua did of healing the sick, and what Peter did of healing the sick, and Mary did of healing? All of those people function, and it's not happening. And I've been very vocal that that's always before I came back to Christianity. That was a question I had. The Bible says everyone who believes Yeshua will be doing this, and no one is doing it. No one believes him. It's a lie. You don't believe him. Because if you believed him, you would be doing the things he did. He said that, not me. He said that. And most people go, oh, yeah, I'm all right, wonderful, good, see ya, and they don't think about it again. That's certainly a thought, and it's certainly a pattern. They have every freedom to do that. They are a sovereign. There are no kings. I did think it was quite funny. I think the corruption used to embrace it, but it's really amazing that at the same time that the scriptures, which is where we were at in the Nag Hammadi, which isn't accidental, it's timed to the T. And everywhere that we go, well, I can't make you believe it. I just know it's true. Everywhere that we go, these things keep following. There is words said from behind this little nothing pulpit, and 2 weeks later they manifest. All of these things, the purpose for us being here is setting the stage for what is to come that's not going to be so easy to deal with. And I assure you, masses are going to fall off of the spiritual wagon when things begin to fully manifest. They won't want to have anything to do with somebody's vibe, frequency, or anything else. And then there will be others that will turn on, and they will be so rock solid you couldn't nudge them if you tried. First off, they wouldn't stay around you long enough if you tried. So the reality of all of this is that we live in a turmoil. How do we function in this turmoil? That's my objective. I don't care a thing about spirituality or anything else that other people say. What I care about is how do I learn to function in the manner in which I was. That's all that's important. It's not important for you. Are there things that are powerful? Are there things that are spiritual that we should be using? Absolutely, no question about that. But you're not going to meditate yourself into full enlightenment. There were many other things Yeshua did besides simply meditating, but it is a very significant part of it. And how you do it and what you do it and the motives behind and the intention. So, can you pray your way into heaven? Unequivocally, yes, and unequivocally, no. You can't. And for those of you who are struggling, and I know there's a lot of them, and so I want you to understand, I don't take this stuff lightly. There is a path and a plan that Source has and the plan is in action, whether you believe it or not. It's like the more pressure that gets put on me, the more Source speaks to me things encouraging me to never turn and look back, let go what isn't valuable. It's just that simple. Because there are things that are coming that those things are going to be insignificant. All right? So you have people that are relocating to areas because of Dolores Cannon's prophecy about what is soon to come for America. Many people already are starting to ask a question. Are all of these spiritual prophecies that are spoken of in 2026 about the United States of America, is what happened the other day the thing that sets what brings such cataclysm into this earth's realm? Are the things that just happened last week part of that reality? And it's highly possible. I am 100% behind our president up to this point. He has been a man of integrity. He has shown light. He has shown love. He has been a war stopper, not a war monger. We had plenty of those in the last 25 years running the United States of America. And all of these things, and yet he's castigated. That tells me that whether he is aware of it or not, there is more light shining through him than 90% of the people in America who consider themselves to be awake. Because were they given the opportunity to do the things he's done, the question remains, would they have? See, I told you the other day that it has nothing to do with but your deeds. Your deeds are a piece of the manifestation of the reality that you are producing. So in that way, all humans, whether they're deceived and deluded or whether they're spiritually growing, are doing exactly the same thing. Think about that, because it seems kind of weird, but I promise you, after just a little while of hearing some deeper truths, you're going to all of a sudden, pieces are going to make sense. And you're still going to have your days when none of it makes sense. That's okay. It's always going to probably be there. But stop and think about that. If in fact the reality is that you are creating the reality, then what does that say? What does that say? And so we're going through these spells, we're going through these times, and we're hearing a lot, and I fully agree with it. Nikola Tesla knew, Albert Einstein knew. Oh, just so you know, these are extreme geniuses. And yet inside of them, they knew that this is all fake. Okay? They said that, they wrote about it, they studied it, they shared it. Just as you and I would have to, okay? Albert Einstein said of Helena Blavatsky, he picked her book that we started, but I just feel like it's too deep for most people. He took that book and they said he would not put it down until he finished it. So Mr. Einstein, that nobody talks about, was actually a very gifted mystic. And so what I'm saying to you, Dolores said recently that it's not what is coming for America is not about where you go. The prophecies are very detailed about the places that are going to collapse into the ocean, just like Atlantis did, that we are behaving with deeds that are abominable to the universe. So those kind of statements right there tell me that all this nonsense about you can act any way you want and that's okay, that's for morons that have no brains, okay? It's not the truth. You're going to pay a price. You get to do anything, but you're going to pay a price for everything you do. And so it's so sad because people's mouths just drop. Oh, shit, you mean I don't get to do... Sorry, but the reality is you're going to find out very quickly that that's the case. And so we have an opportunity to become this. It is put in front of us. It is clear. You don't have to accept it, but you also don't have to reject it. You don't have to believe it, and yet you don't have to disbelieve it. It really is quite an amazing revelation that what my higher self is telling me the standards are is the only standards that I should be listening to. And that sounds real good, but I've recognized that there's a lot of people that are pretending as if the higher self is the one telling them, and they never stop and consider the other forces out here who have been speaking into humanity for 40,000 years. They're really good at this stuff, guys. They like to tell you exactly what you want to hear. And before it's all over with, they'll have you walking away from the good and living right back in the middle of the black. There's lots of stuff that talks about this. You could find it. It's not very difficult. But most people don't want to, because then it makes us accountable. When this comes into our life, there's a reason. Wow. That piece of this whole concept has been so huge for me. It just is, it's almost more than I can deal with oftentimes. Because we have been told that we really don't have any control and that we don't have control over anything our whole lives in Christianity. The only control you had was to accept Jesus and the blood of Jesus and live according to what you were taught. And that was the only right decision. And now you have a million of them every day, and nobody's standing there like the Torah or priests or preachers or honest people to tell you the way. And so people are wandering all over the place and think that's the way. I know it's true because I know it's true. And so for all of us, how can we then, what if we had to go and research and find out how do we be successful at this? You know, I've heard all kinds of teachings about if a person acts this way, they're bad, yada, yada, yada. But nobody will deal with the reality of the things because they don't care enough in the first place. But what did Buddha teach? And I know some of you may not be at the place where you literally believe that Yeshua was all of those, because it wasn't Yeshua, it was consciousness. So some of these things, until you can make peace with yourself inside, that every other human is consciousness, even if they're acting unconsciously. And so, and we all have been, so please, there's no condemning, there's no judgment from me about this. It's just a revelation of how things really work, and you get to choose. Well, I'm going to say what is said in the Bible. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the monad, the source, our higher self. And so I said a really profound thing. I told you guys that to a large extent, are there human spirits that die and get hung up? I'm sure there's a million things possible that we don't know anything about. But to a large extent, one of the problems, so I'm going to show you, I'm not the only one. There are a lot of other very well-known teachers making millions of dollars compared to what I'm making. And they're saying the exact same words. That's so funny. That's why when Source tells me, forget what everybody thinks about you and you keep doing what I tell you to. See, I found one thing in my heart. I believe that. I believe that there isn't anything, and the harder it gets, the more it proves that is true. And so it's amazing. It's wonderful. I'm going to tell you guys, there is going to be shifts, and they're going to surprise the heck out of you. Complete and total shifts. There's going to be shifts in lots of ways, and they're headed our way already. The only way they can be defined is individually how you define the shift that comes. Because for some spiritualists and not spiritualists, these shifts will be bad, okay? And for some who are enlightening, the shifts are going to be something sought after. Okay? I've said it several times in the past. Humanity mentally is diminishing. The purpose for that happening is that the light is going to be shown brighter and brighter and brighter. Yeshua said that. You must go into the dark to be the light. What was he saying? He was telling you that the only way you're ever going to see who you are is by getting in the middle of the things that are darkness. There's a whole sect that is saying run. That is weak, sick-minded people mentality. They want you to be, if you could use an American term, they want you to be a sissy saint that contains all sovereignty, and yet you're too scared to do anything or say anything. It's very prominent right now, and it is part of what is going to bring the separation from higher consciousness, and the separation from lower frequencies is going to manifest because of that. I can't tell you enough. You just have to either see it inside of you or wait and watch it happen, and maybe then you'll wake up. Maybe then you won't. But whether you do or don't is still, at least at that level, is a question that we all have to ask ourselves and then make a decision. Or are we going to follow this truth that brings me to a place that I truly can stand in all power and never have to infringe on someone else's power? If you infringe on my power to be free, then you are not free. It's only when you would do anything to not infringe on my sovereignty that you can even be sovereign or manifest it. So what's happening is this whole thing. There again, go read these ancient prophecies. There's at least 5, including Nostradamus, Casey, and Dolores Cannon, and they all say the same thing. And the place that where we're at, one of the things they said is humanity's moral basis and compass is going to be at the world's all-time low when these catastrophic things begin to happen. Well, what we do know is that when a light being enlightens, they carry that light. In other words, you functioning in your light sovereignty is infinitely more powerful. What Yeshua was telling us in the New Testament, and even in the Old Testament, when you see the prophet who gets given an opportunity to see through the veil, and what does he see? He sees spiritual beings. He never was alone. That is a metaphor for consciousness. That's what the prophet's being shown, not angels. We are all angels in that concept. A speck of the divine light is called an angle, and it's where they got the concept of an angel. Okay? The angel Michael is nothing but a stronger spark of divine light than you are. That's why he's known as an angel. If we can get a hold of some of these principles, they will empower you. But here's another piece that goes in another layer. That's not about what you say. It's about what you show. And we don't like to think about it that the universe is watching our behavior, but it is. Every thought that you entertain in your mind is recorded. That's pretty huge. We didn't like that in Christianity when the Bible tells us the same thing that the mystics told us. Every thought that you have, good, bad, or indifference, is in you, and it is who you are. That's why in our society, so many people are sick and have pain and suffering, and it's not to beat anything up. It's not to make anyone feel bad. It's not to say that you failed. We haven't had an opportunity to know the truth, much less to understand the truth, and then to function in the truth. And I see this everywhere. It hits me on many different levels, and just the things that the higher self has been releasing words just out of the blue, and it's like, wow, how did you know that I needed that? Profound 2-second thing that just has taken days, and I'm still not over it. Just a simple little statement. But the reality of it is that if we can find ourselves believing that we possess this great consciousness, then we have to begin the journey. It's not enough to remember, and I hear a lot of people, nothing in the world wrong with us. Humanity is remembering who we are. It is a truth. But here's what happens often. Oh, we're going to all remember. Okay, wonderful. Everybody remembered. Now, how did that help you? And it didn't help you a thing. You go right over there and you still drink the same beer and you still drink the same coffee and you still act the same way, and you go, hey, I remember. And my point isn't that there's any problem wrong with going somewhere and having a beer or smoking a joint. That's not the problem. The problem is what are you doing in your mind? And how is this reality coming into you? And what is it doing? How is it manifesting in you? And so I hope that the ones who do listen, I hope that you hear, we are amazingly phenomenal beings. It's horrible what they've done to us, but we can't change that. But dear friend, there is something that we can change. And that change is humanity. How and to what extent? I'm not monad. I don't know all the secrets. I don't know anyone, nor will I ever know anyone that does know outside of my consciousness, which is pure, and that is my higher self. Wow, there's just so much that we go through, and I struggle as much as anybody does, but there's so much that we go through that we don't realize that it's just a piece of the game. Everything that has gone on in your life is source nudging you to a place that you make a decision with the desire for you to make a right decision. But on the other side, because Source said free will is the theme of the day, even Source will not stop you from being what you are, nor will they make you consciously and intentionally lose and fight and destroy and overcome your ego. It has been said that you will never know God as long as you know who you are. Because the reality is, and it goes to the scriptures that have been with me for a couple of days. And Yeshua made a really profound statement, friends. If you need a piece of confirmation that every word I've said is correct, it's okay if you don't believe that, but that doesn't change that it's true. But the reality is, Yeshua said this. He said, in and only when you make the outside of you the same as the inside of you, then and only then. So I could actually make a case with a lot of scriptures out of the Bible that all of this nonsense about you being something may be true on one side, but on the other side, you'll never experience any of it. Unless it is true, but you'll never experience it. And Yeshua said that. He said, except a man makes his outside world. In other words, the world, your reality that you are manifesting, except you make it like the inside, because here's what he's really saying. This is the spin on words and the play on tongue. You are already doing that. That wasn't new to him. You're already manifesting what you are inside. And if you don't like what you're manifesting, you need to change the inside. The whole reason why the washing your hands but they never come clean, that's why that's a truth. Is because you don't do anything to fix the inside. How many parables, I'll have to find if I can find the count, because it would surprise you how many in 4 books, 4 gospels, how many times Yeshua tells people that these Pharisees, you see them over here, they wash the outside of the cup but don't do anything to the inside. He was telling us the same message. He tells us over here that unless your outside becomes what your inside is, your inside must also become what your outside is. In other words, what is the moral of the story? That you are in total coherence. It's only when what is truly you inside and what is your physical you morph, sync, and become one, then and only then. Once again, it goes back to the principle that you are already consciousness, divine consciousness. We're not talking any longer about remembering. If you don't remember that you are divine consciousness, then continue on. The thing is the remembering. If you remember that you are divine consciousness, then let's move forward, because it's not just about remembering that we were something. We must begin to move into being what we are. And that's exactly what Yeshua is speaking about. It does matter inside, but I'll tell you what's just as important as the inside is the outside. And so here's a picture for you. You think it can't happen, but I guarantee you it happened a million times today, and it'll do the same again tomorrow. So somewhere a guru has all of his guru, and he's the thing, and he's ascended, and he's all of that, and he walks out, and you park in his parking place, and he breaks your windshield out. Wouldn't you say that that was justified? I mean, after all, it's the king's parking place, and you parked in it. Sorry on you. You created a broken windshield. And in reality, that is true. But on the other question, there is also now the part about you. And ask yourself a question. If you had to park for whatever the reason was, it isn't even really relevant. It doesn't matter. It was. Would you want someone to come to your place and break your windshield out? And if you can't answer that with a pure heart, friend, that's nothing but mass hypocrisy. You don't love your neighbor as yourself. I'm going to tell you there are 3 things that you can take tonight and begin to focus and think on that are going to help you function in the realm that is coming. They're all about you. Okay? One of the things that we must begin to see is not anti-spiritual. It isn't true in the universe, but remember, we're still functioning in a human world. Okay? And that is your character. You can define character, if you don't know what that word even means, as the things you do when no one is looking at you. That is your character, not what you think people through your fake avatar think that you are. Please do not discount these words, because I suspect that before it's over with, I will tell thousands and a few singles will actually get it. Most are not looking for how can I become all that I am. And I'm looking for how can I become all that I am. And so when these people of renown like Yeshua had no character flaws. He did what was right because it was right. He didn't get forced to. He didn't need commandments to do it. He had a heart and he had contact with the consciousness of the universe. He kind of was going, well, you know, some of these things are kind of pretty asinine. And it is so today. So, do we diminish our frequency when we stand up for rightness? And I only need to take you to Yeshua in the temple, dear friends. Because according to most lying spiritual teachers that are teaching today, Yeshua totally blew the load in the temple. You're supposed to stand and you're supposed to observe, and you should, and you're not supposed to have any emotions, and you shouldn't. But in reality, you look at Yeshua, and Yeshua was the deal. He wasn't just the light, part of the light. He was the light. That's the significance of Yeshua the mystic. He was the light. He was the pureness of the monad. That's why he is the first of us. And so Yeshua goes off. Do you know that Yeshua did not believe in Yahweh? That's why he never once uses his name. He wasn't offended about the things. Y'all ain't going to be ready for this. Wow, thank you, Source. Yeshua was offended because they were there worshiping a God who doesn't exist. I guarantee you won't get another person. You could go watch YouTube for the next 6 months and you ain't going to hear them words again. Somebody will watch me and it'll be on their video a month from now. But I just gave you a very significant piece of reality. The problem wasn't the people selling money. The problem is not you eating pork. The problem is not you eating shrimp. The problem is not those things. They have no morality value. If you are stuck, and the people that were with me was stuck, friends. We was stuck Christians. Right in the middle of the deepest of the depth. That's why this has been such a monumental thing for all of those. I've had several bless me with kindness and give me words of confirmation, but quite honestly, the reality of it is that is monumental in and of itself. So for all of you who are struggling and you hear it, and some of it buries with you, but you're struggling. Hell, keep struggling. The struggle is not meant to make you stop. The struggle is meant to make you stronger. And I have to tell you, one of the hardest truths I've had to deal with up till now is that truth. So it matters what I think. If you understood the depth of you create with your mind. The Bible clearly tells us that he thought and then he made. You think. And I know this is struggles with people, but when we rehearse the things and, oh, well, my boss sucks and I can't stand him and I'm so unhappy. And just keep rehearsing that crap and that'll be with you till the end of your life. You can leave and go to 29 jobs and they're all going to be exactly the same. You are creating that. You are the creator of that. And that's hard. Okay, so you got problems, right? You hurt. Is your hurt valid? Damn right they are. But the reality of it is what you bring out of that is how you talk about that you're experiencing. And if you focus on it as in negative sense, it will be horribly negative to you. If you focus on it in the positive sense, is that difficult? Of course. I don't know where this whole misconception came in. We flow into this naturally, but that doesn't have anything to do with the situations we encounter in our everyday life. In fact, just so you know, when you're in your worst encounters is when the flow is the strongest. See, it's like the Yeshua thing. Everybody is functioning in a carnal realm. Oh, he's mad because of the money. And that's what the Bible told you too, wasn't it? And he was mad because of the money, and he would not even acknowledge Yahweh. Never once did he acknowledge Yahweh. Why? Because he knew who he was. You didn't. That's the only thing that we have to save us at that level, is the fact that we did not know, and now the truth is coming out. Yahweh is the demiurge. He is, in fact, the creator of humanity, of human bodies. He is not the creator of our spirit essence. We came first, friends. Before Sophia ever stepped out and decided to create something without the creative expression of source, which is what caused the demiurge and all the stuff that we're encountering right now. It all came because of that, and we were here before that was. So I hear people say things all the time, but friend, you're about as ancient as they come. When you start feeling bad because you're 60 years old and your body hurts, can I just give you an insight? You ain't 60 years old. Your body's 60 years old. You is ancient. Always has been, always will be. And so I know that it seems sometimes, I'm just a very direct person. I don't like people lying to me, and I don't like people playing games with me. There is no question that the movement that is going on now, so I hope that I can share this with you guys. This movement is going to last, expected somewhere around 100 years. We're in the apex of it. It's been going on since the 60s and before. But we are kind of in an apex, a hiatus, a middle point before it then changes again and will continue on in the evolution of humanity or source. So we are going to encounter things that spirit beings like us who will move into altered states because of us. That's the purpose for most of the light workers, if you know them as that. That's why they chose to come here, is to help humanity remember not just that you are, but what does that mean? See, knowing, and that's why I had to share that piece. I don't hear many people that are understanding that. The point initially, until you get there, is that you need to remember. Because until you remember, you can't do anything, right? But remembering is not the end, friends. Remembering is bringing you to the place of beginning, the place of new birth. Did you know that when Yeshua said to Nicodemus, the Pharisee, that he wasn't talking? In fact, most people that I've met as being a Christian pastor, after their whole life of hearing that teaching, still can't tell you what Yeshua meant when he talked to Nicodemus, the Pharisee. He said to him, Nicodemus, don't you know that you must be born again? And how many different messages in your life of being in Christian church, how many different messages have you heard? Can I now give you the truth of what he meant? The enlightenment is the birth. The resurrection that Paul talks about is the birth. The birthing of ourself into a new being. That's not just remembering that we were. That's moving into the functionality of being that. So we have character. What you do does matter. How you behave does matter. It's not like the pastor from some Christian church is going to get on you or the board's going to call you in front of them. It doesn't matter in that way. It matters to you. It matters either for or against you. And you did it, so that's fair. That's not somebody else doing you harm. And so we have this. Then we have another piece. The Bible tells us that we are to love. This is the strongest one by far. What does it mean to love unconditionally? And how is that supposed to look to us? What does it mean to love unconditionally? And even more when Yeshua taught this, because he's teaching us about being light. It's a piece where he's teaching about being light and telling you that you have responsibilities. Now, if you want to miss that and go on mindlessly, not recognizing what reality is at the spirit level, then by all means do so. There's a reason why science is saying that the people that are embracing the new, and there's already schisms amongst spiritualists even on YouTube. There's already starting to be a separation in the last year between the people who are interested in enlightenment and the people who are part of the spiritual pony show. Okay, there's lots of them out there, friends, that are in spiritual pony shows. People send me things all the time. Oh, look at this and read this great writing. And I look at it and go, that's a bunch of bunk. Prove it. Why didn't he ever quote the scripture if it was so real? Because it doesn't exist. It's a summation of what someone. Well, if that summation comes from a higher source, then I will hear it as truth for me, and I will recognize it as being such. And just as when you're flowing, you should be able to do that on both levels, both for and against. Remember, everything is balanced in the universe. There's no up without a down, and there's no left without a right, and there's no soft without a hard, and it just goes on ad nauseum. In other words, there is no end. Everything is in balance. And so the bad things that come into our life is when we get out of imbalance. The way that we affect. You could actually literally say that all of the people who are creating these realities that I hate, all of those people are out of balance. And if they were brought into balance, of course they have to do it, but if they were brought into balance, their life would shift. Yeah, there's a lot of scientific information that the words that I'm telling you are absolutely true. So we've come to a remembering. If you come by here, I'd like to tell you that we are finding out and we are remembering that we are consciousness. We are all the same spirit. There is no difference. There's no way for you to be better, and there's no way for you to be worse. So when you look in ego and spirit pride and you look at other people and you go, I'm better than them, friend, you just really hurt yourself a lot. And if that's how you live and function every day, no wonder your life is like it is. But the reality of it is that none of us, we are all the exact same conscience. It's not a metaphor that we're a drop in the ocean. It's a reality. But my drop in the ocean is just as powerful and just as potent as yours is. And it's only when people begin to let down the guard of the fake self, and that becomes a priority that they focus on, only then will they begin to find it. There's nothing that Source has been playing with. I alm and I meditate, but nowhere near like all these people say. It's not necessary. I don't say that it's necessary for how much ever you need. But opening up the door, we could do it. We could do it here tonight. I've already done several today. There is a place where we can engage with the monad, friend. And whether I know that maybe most don't, that's okay too. But there is ways that we can engage with the monad. And everything that comes through the portal is monad. The giver, if you would, and the receiver. Because it's also the portal that should you ascend to the pleroma, dear one, that you will go through. And so, how do we get there? And there's many ways. But one of the strongest simple patterns for us to raise our frequency, there's a lot to say about that because there's lots and lots of opinions, and I don't know that there's that many realities. There's just lots of people that understand it the way they do. And that's fine, but maybe there's some pieces that we don't understand, and that would help us. So, what does it mean that we are spirit, and what does it mean that God is nothing but love? Think about that. Ask yourself. Yeshua taught, he said that a man must love his neighbor like he loves himself. And we really do have an amazingly pure portrait of that if we would open our eyes and see it. And that is the reality. How does Source, how does the universe that is nothing and yet everything, how does it hum, impulses, and creation exists? How does he feel about humans? Did you know that how you answer that question is probably the way in which you view the world? How does a God that created everything love everything equally? And if that is who he is, and he is, but if that is who he is, then shouldn't you be desiring to accomplish the same? If you're not, I'll let you figure that out, but it's so beautiful. We free ourselves when and only we can find inside of us the reality to love ourselves. And I know I've had a couple of conversations recently, and it was really amazing, because I realized that people are struggling with that concept. How do you really love yourself? I used to say that the mass majority of people I counseled, I don't see that. I see them hating themselves. And you can sit and listen to them for hours and be depressed and need some Xanax or something after you listen to how people view the world through their eyes. Sad, hurt, unhappy, yada, yada, yada. And yet, there is so much abundance for us to have. And so, if you believe that God is love, I certainly do, it probably would benefit us then if we begin a journey of focusing on what is God's love. What is? What am I supposed to be looking for? What am I supposed to be looking at, and how am I supposed to be looking at it? I would think those would be like top priorities as far as your life and your spiritual journey. This isn't like Christianity, friend. And you can find any version that fits with you, and there's outcomes that each one of those will bring. I don't necessarily say bad, just outcomes. And they're not all going to be the same. But Source desires for us to become what he is, and he is love. And to me, that's the greatest rule, commandment that there is. And then not only that, he wants us to prove it by how we treat other human beings. That's heavy. And yet, it's the basis of everything that is. You can do nothing unless you do that. Do you realize that it's not accidental that prayers don't get answered? It's not an accident. Everything that's ever been manifested by any human has come at a price. And sometimes that price is going without and still trusting the universe. The universe is not our enemy. The universe is not mad at you. Okay? The universe extracts from our experiences knowledge, gnosis. That's why Yeshua had all the answers to all of humans' problems, because he knew all the problems. And so, I hope that you will take this. Maybe you'll look a little kinder tomorrow at someone who doesn't, in human standards, doesn't deserve it. Are we going to be successful every time? Probably not. Should we become more successful every time? Yes, I hope so. But the reality of it is that you can find someone to tell you anything you want, but that's not the question. Of course you can. The question is it what Source is looking for? And if that becomes your priority, then nothing is too much. And so I hope you guys will take that and understand that you really are special. And if you realize that inside, then continue on. But understand that there are things further ahead of you. And so it's going to be amazing and wonderful, and it's going to be painful, which doesn't in any way diminish from the amazing and wonderful. So I hope you'll take those things, use them positively. If your mind is open, I have no doubts that there will be pieces that'll pop up, and you'll go, wow, that was it right there. I have those almost every day. So in closing, I'd like to do this. I'd like you just to take 5 minutes and close your mind. You can say, do whatever you want to do, but this is the concept, that you invite the monad, and it will probably seem weird to you, but that you invite the monad. I invite the monad by inviting my higher self, and I find that amazingly effective. The more that I search and seek the dialogue with my higher self, the more dialogue it seems that I have, and so I think you'll find there's a pretty good tie to that. But if you are in that place, and please, it doesn't matter, it's not going to be sacrilege, you're not going to go to hell because you said 666 or something, but the reality of it is that you can start every day. And some days you wish you'd have took twice as long, but we all have those days. But if you just close your mind, close your eyes, just be chill. Just let what is. And I would encourage you to invite your higher self. Let your higher self know that you are making an active effort to engage. We remember you're there. Now the journey is to begin to find there. And so I hope that maybe this will help somebody where they're having a hard time and a struggle. It's hard, the whole ego and all of that concept, man. That stuff is hard. We are so eat up with that stuff. It's our nature, and it is as far as we have lived, but it's not our true nature. Our true nature is kind and loving, peaceful, giving, not self-centered, but man, we've been programmed massively. So I hope that you guys will just take something from this, and it'll bless you. Namaste.